If you're interested in the Itiwit X500 Strenfit inflatable kayak, either because you already have one or you're interested in getting yourself one, this video is for you. The background to this video is actually that in the Facebook group Itiwit X500 Owners, which is a great group. If you do have an Itiwit X500 or you're interested in it, I actually highly recommend that you join this group. There's a lot of people there that are helping out with information and recommendations and advice for X500 owners or prospective owners. So thanks to everyone there for a good discussion climate and a lot of useful information. But anyway, what I did at an earlier point is that I actually asked people in the group whether people might find it interesting to have a video that showed the Itiwit X500 in different conditions. So different weather conditions, different parts of the year, and how it performs and my impressions. So there was actually quite a lot of interest in that, and there's been a lot of other videos in line before that, so it's taken me a while to get to this, but I promised to make a video, so here it is finally. So what I'm gonna do in this video is showcase the X500 from my own trips, so in all seasons, and also in different conditions, in different weather conditions, in calm and less calm water. So as to have a bit of a backdrop as to how the Itiwit X500 actually performs in different conditions. So in general, it's always really fun to look back at great paddles, and it makes you want to go out there and paddle even more. And I would say that's the first thing about this kayak. It makes you want to go out and paddle even more, basically all the time. It depends from paddler to paddler. In winter, in the early parts of the year or the late parts of the year, depending on where you're located, not every paddle is out there paddling, simply because the water is too cold, the conditions are too cold. It's dangerous to be out in cold water if you don't have the proper protection. But I invested in a dry suit, and that has completely changed my paddle experience. I'm able to enjoy the Itiwit X500 all year round, and I actually find the cold part of the year really great for paddling. You don't have boats out on the water, you have the waters many times to yourself, even in the city. It's beautiful with the snow, it's interesting with ice, although you have to be really careful, and it is really a great season to paddle. So in winter, in the early months of the year, as I'm based in Sweden, this means cold water, snow, ice, etc., etc. Well, the first advantage of the Itiwit X500 is of course that it's really a closed kayak. I mean, it acts pretty much like a sea kayak, with the option of adding a spray skirt onto it, which you really want to have on in winter, obviously, or in rain or any conditions that might have you get splashed by waves and such and such. So basically, in my Itiwit X500, I am really confident, actually. It should be mentioned that I have a V2, that's the second version of the Itiwit X500. It's the more stable version. There was an earlier version before 2020, or produced before 2020, which was the V1, which was slightly faster, but was shaped a little bit differently, and that was tippier, actually, less stable. The V2 version looks essentially the same, but is more flat in the middle, where you're sitting, basically. So it means it's a more stable kayak, and if anyone would like to do that, it's even possible to decrease the pressure a little bit to make it even more stable. So for me, the Itiwit X500, after having gotten used to it, I've paddled it quite a lot, so I wouldn't go out in winter conditions as a beginner to paddle, of course. But once you're used to the balance and you're used to moving the boat around and you're used to some waves, it's a really powerful kayak. So I've really enjoyed a lot of winter scenery, waves and all kind of things And I've never really felt like I was in trouble with this kayak. I've been out in water certainly where I really had to focus. I was aware of that a wave could really tip me over if I were not paying attention, or surf or whatnot. I did have to brace with my knees. I did have to really use my paddle in a reasonable way. But the Itiwit X500 for me, after really having learned how it works, is stable and not for a beginner. I mean, not for someone who would perhaps be more comfortable in a pontoon-style kayak. That's something else. But if comparing it to most sea kayaks, actually this is more stable than most sea kayaks, I would say. And oftentimes when I paddle with others, I'm the one that's most comfortable, even in choppier waters. Well, partly because I've been in choppy waters, but also because the X500 is really stable. Then again, it's also still an inflatable kayak, so in wind, or if you have waves going right against you, then a sea kayak will have the advantage, of course. It will be shaped more efficiently, it will be longer. So, for example, on this paddle that I'm showing here, I was going against strong wind and waves for the final hour or so, and that was actually very notable how much slower I was than my friend in his more aptly shaped sea kayak, because when you're really being resisted by the wind, this still is a wide kayak at around 65 centimeters or so, I believe. So the Itiwit X500 is a power package. It's fast, especially on calm water, but it's also really versatile in choppier waters. So whether it's winter or going into springtime, water's still cold, you still have to be careful. I'm still going to be using my dry suit, etc. It's a kayak that I'm very comfortable taking around in waves and paddling for longer distances, because as inflatable kayaks go, it's really fast, simply. Then again, in winter or in the spring or in late fall when things are cold, depending on how you're transporting your kayak, if you're carrying your kayak quite a bit to the water for longer distances, or even traveling with public transport, then in winter it is a heavy kayak to lug around. It's 16 kilograms the kayak itself, it's 18 kilograms with the bag, and it does have quite a bit of weight to it when you add all of the gear for the cold season, extra clothes and safety gear and whatnot, and your spray skirt, and everything weighs. So there's a lot of, gear to bring around. So most times in winter I tend to be going out with friends, and the kayak is in a car and we're heading out and we're just getting the kayaks out and getting out on the water. But I have brought it out on public transport in winter as well, and that's certainly feasible. Still, it's a nice kayak to bring out there. And as spring continues and things get warmer, the challenge is actually that the air temperature gets warmer and warmer, and the Itiwit X500, I would say it's not really a kayak that you mostly want to be around relaxing in. Well, it can be, but for me, because it's a fast kayak, I tend to be paddling relatively quickly as well to get places. So at this point in spring, you're kind of gonna start getting warm as you paddle, and then you simply have to dress smartly while still being prepared for, if you were to end up in the water, well, you still need to have sufficient amount of clothes on underneath your dry suit in this case, or later on paddle jacket and such. It's still a really, really nice kayak to be around in. And again, in winter, in spring, in late fall, there's simply a lot of gear that you're gonna be bringing with you if you're smart about it. So it's a little bit more cumbersome, but it works. And I've paddled it in snow, as we could see earlier, in rain, in waves of all kinds, and it works really, really nicely. When you get to summer and all of a sudden you're out there in warm water, it's just beautiful. First of all, I would say in the cold season, basically an inflatable kayak has a tendency to lose a little bit of pressure because of the difference as the air pressure drops a bit in really cold conditions. So that is something that can affect performance, and in all cases you'll have ice and whatnot on your kayak. I'll get back to that later on in this video. But in summer you don't really have to deal with that. You basically need some more basic clothing, just some spare clothes in case you were to somehow end up in the water in a dry bag. But if you're out there, let's say in the city on a warm day, maybe what you'll need to bring is a light jacket, a t-shirt, and some pants or some shorts even, and that's it. If the weather's good, you just get out there and paddle. And that's the difference when you're out there in summer waters. It's really fun, it's really relaxed, and you can just be out there enjoying your paddling with a minimal amount of gear. Still being safety oriented, of course, but still, it's nice. The opposite actually happens, right? You all of a sudden have the heat to deal with. You need sunscreen, you need to wear a cap, you need to wear sunglasses, etc., etc. The X500 is, again, definitely a kayak that you'll be tempted to really work out in. So it can be a bit sweaty in summer, but you can really go for long paddles and enjoy this thing. Then again, if we are starting to get into fall, it's getting a little bit cooler. I could also mention the fact that the X500, it doesn't have a skeg or a rudder. So one wonders, well, does it go straight? And the answer is it does. When you stop paddling, basically, it will drift in the direction that you were paddling last. So that's the thing. I would say it's a great kayak to just sit around in and relax on the water, because, at least for me, after having paddled it a while, I'm quite comfortable in it. So I can easily just sit around without paddling, just having a snack or just enjoying the scenery, being very relaxed. But it will turn a bit when you're not paddling. So that's something to be aware of. And it's never been an issue for me because I use an action camera when I'm paddling. But for people who are going to get out their phone to take photos and such, it's something to be aware of. Then again, now we're in fall, and it is a really beautiful season to be paddling in. And I've taken out the X500 actually by public transport, and then intercity train, and then bus and whatnot to a different city, for example from Stockholm to Eskilstuna, and done a multiple day paddle over there in fantastic fall conditions with the leaves and reflections and just amazing paddle conditions. This can be completely beautiful, and because I trust this kayak, I'm confident in getting out and really exploring rivers and lakes and locations far away from my own home. I mean, I've taken this with me to Finland without a car, actually, just carrying it onto the ferry and then carrying it around in Helsinki, for example. It is something where you could add a kayak trolley using the straps in the back to fixate that, and that's something that certainly I would bring with me if I'm heading into waters where I don't know if there will be obstacles. I might have to carry the kayak, as I had to do on that particular fall excursion, for example, and many other excursions as well. Then again, you get more rain this season, and you know, that's always fun to be paddling in as long as you're dressed well. It's quite a nice season actually, where also towards the end of the fall season, the boats are again getting taken up on land, so you're getting the waters more and more to yourself. And before you know it, of course, you're back to winter, at least if you're in this part of the world. And the last months can be quite inspiring. In Stockholm, towards the end of the fall, there's the annual kayak parade, which last year had about 115 kayaks during Swedish Sea Kayak Day, Havskajakens Dag, which is a 33-kilometer kayak parade around Stockholm. Me and my friends actually did more than 40 kilometers as longest, and that works really nicely. Earlier in the year, I've actually done 42 kilometers in one day as a marathon. And all of this is just to show that the X500 works, even when paddling with a group of sea kayaks or whatnot. But what I was really getting to is that when winter comes, it also is time for the annual nightlight kayak parade in Stockholm, Lucia Paddling, which is a kayak parade to City Hall and which takes place in the dark. So, I mean, I've taken this out a couple of times in freezing winter conditions, below the freezing point, with lights on the kayak and 100+ kayaks around you with lights. That's quite an experience. And paddling in the dark, you have to be really careful. You really have to be careful, especially, of course, if there's ice in the water. But that experience has been beautiful as well. And I'm really confident in getting the X500 out in those conditions also. But with solid judgment, based on experience, and with proper safety gear, etc., etc. I'll add links to those videos here as well. All in all, I mean, we're back to winter here. It's a season that I love to paddle in, and the X500 works just as well then as it does otherwise, except again for that you could have some pressure decrease from the cold conditions, and that the kayak is more tricky to fold in the winter time, because the cold and the extra moisture and perhaps even ice on your kayak, etc., makes the kayak trickier to fold. So you kind of need to take that into account if you're out in winter conditions, if you're going to be carrying your kayak back, that folding it might be trickier and require some time. It works, but you might have to work for it a bit if you're unlucky. So that's basically it. That's trips across all the year with the Itiwit X500. And this not being a prepared presentation in any way, it's just me thinking out loud. I hope it still has provided a little bit of reflections that might be helpful, or at least footage that might be nice for X500 owners or owners in the making. And as I said, I will be making a full review of the Itiwit X500 where I'll go much more systemically through the capacity and characteristics of this kayak. So that's coming up in a while. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, so you don't miss that. And that's it. It would be nice to hear your comments of your experience with the X500, if you have one, your best time of year that you actually prefer to paddle in, and your best paddle memories. I see a lot of cool footage out there from people doing great things with the X500, and I'd say again, well, it is a powerful kayak. I like it a lot. It's heavy to lug around if you're going to walk long distances, but it can be done as well, and it is a really powerful kayak. I've had so many good memories with it, and that's where I'm gonna end this video at this time. Thank you for watching, and enjoy your paddle adventures out there. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe in order to help others find the information on this channel. Stay safe out there, and happy paddles!